You are listening to the Air Raid Hour with host Judge Mathis, dog, Tilt Money, dog, presented by the fine folks over at the Cover One Sports Network, dogs. Bills Mafia, let's go!
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Air Raid Hour, a Victory Monday edition of the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him as always on Twitter at Tilt Money, presented by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. So, Dave, the Bills, they beat the Jets 20-12 yesterday. They improved to 10-3 on the season. Win next week, we clinch a playoff berth. Win next week, and then any other win clinches us the AFC East. Oh, and obviously, as long as we keep on winning, we are still in first place in the AFC. What are your initial thoughts on this sloppy 20-12 win that included 5 punts to start the game? First time since the Packers game, Allen's rookie season in 2018.
Look, it was an ugly game. The conditions weren't ideal. Obviously, I wasn't at the game, but others have kind of pointed that out. It was a slow start, right? And unfortunately, we have seen some slow starts from this offense in the past, several weeks against the Lions, against the Browns, and other games. But ultimately, they got their footing enough to where they took that 7-0 lead into halftime. And it was at that point, really, for me, after that Knox touchdown, that I never truly felt like the Bills were in any real threat of giving up that lead or losing the game. And as Jessica said in the first comment, 2 wins, no turnovers the last 2 games. Bills felt in control the entire time. They did start losing the field position battle early on in that one, but once they got that score with Knox before the end of the half, I felt like that was going to be, I hate to say insurmountable, right? Because the Jets did end up scoring, but once they got that touchdown and they got their footing a bit, I really did agree. I do agree with Jessica that like it didn't ever feel like the Bills were not in control of the game. Would we have liked to seen some better execution, some better play calling? We're going to get into all that tonight, sure. But ultimately, they did what they needed to do, and they beat the Jets, a feat they could not accomplish the last time these two teams played. So an improvement.
Yeah, my biggest fear came after the blocked punt when the Jets were driving down the field. But then once DeMar Hamlin peanut punched Michael Carter and we recovered that fumble, I was right back to feeling pretty darn confident again. But yeah, that weather was bad. The Bills didn't use it as an excuse after the game. Sean McDermott said, listen, all those drops, that wasn't on the weather. Josh Allen said the clunky looking offense only scoring 20 points. Like that wasn't on the weather. So the Buffalo Bills took accountability post game and didn't want to play the weather or blame the weather game, blame the weather. But you could tell that the weather was affecting both teams, as I believe it was 8 punts to start that game or something like that. I mean, it was absolutely wild. It was just a really field position game, and the Buffalo Bills, they hung tough. They didn't make any mistakes, and then they were finally able to break through there at the end of the first half. I'll tell you what, like we've seen them curb stomp the Patriots in the wild card game in the elements, but are you at all a little concerned as we get into this winter season? I know that there's weather, snow in the forecast for when Miami comes to town next Saturday night. Are you at all concerned that this team isn't built or is going to struggle, or that weather and that home field is not going to be an advantage to this football team?
I will say this. I think the Bills have the personnel that they can play in that type of game. I do think that the Bills, if in the right situation and if the calls are in rhythm and if there's good sequencing to some of the play calling, that they have the horses to play in this type of weather. I think James Cook and Devin Singletary as a tandem can be effective in that type of weather. I think Josh showed yesterday he could throw the ball in the rain in certain situations when he needed to. They were one big pass breakup away from Sauce Gardner on John Brown having a ridiculous touchdown catch as well. So let's not forget that. So for the most part, I mean, Josh in that weather did put the ball where he needed to put the ball. I think for me, whether or not the Bills can be effective in this type of weather, I will say comes more down to the play calling and the game planning and the scheming and that type of thing than it does the actual personnel on the field. And that's a good debate to have. And many people may disagree with me on that, but
Yeah.
I generally don't have an issue with this personnel being able to perform in these type of conditions.
Yeah, Ralph Wilson Sr. comes in and says Bills have the advantage in bad weather. His name is Josh, and I do agree with you to an extent. The only misgiving I have, because I think the quarterback is good enough for this kind of weather conditions. I think that the running backs are good enough for these type of weather conditions. We've seen Devin Singletary play in these conditions before. The defensive line is so much stouter now. So in a game where teams have to run the ball, I really trust our defensive line. I trust our linebackers. I even trust our two safeties coming up, sniffing around the line of scrimmage. I trust our defense. I trust our special teams. You saw Tyler Bass kick a really nice 49-yard field goal in those conditions yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
There's one misgiving that I have. I think two misgivings. Number one is the offensive line. Like, I don't know. Every once in a while, they show flashes like they did against the Patriots and like they did, in spurts the past couple of weeks where we could run the ball down people's throats. But in this game, like, the offensive line got worked and they did not do well. And Saffold got worked on a couple of occasions. I know it was Quinnen Williams he was going up against. I thought Ryan Bates, up until he got hurt, was the best player along that offensive line. And then you had Spencer Brown, who statistically, I don't have the numbers in front of me, unfortunately, but another really bad day where he allowed a lot of pressures, a lot of hurries, a lot of quarterback hits. So not a great day for Spencer Brown. I'm worried that, and Ken Dorsey was my other concern, because the Bills, other than Josh Allen, they really didn't attempt to run the football in this game. They never tried to pivot to the run game. They never tried to go heavy. They never tried to do any of those type of things. So that's going to sit in the back of my mind, especially heading into this Dolphins game next week. Now, it could all be for nothing because, week in and week out, things change. The Buffalo Bills adjust. They come out, they run the ball better. So who knows, what we'll see here. But yeah, that is the one misgiving I do have, is that offensive line. It's going to need a revamp. I think I saw, our buddy Merck on Twitter. He said the way the Buffalo Bills have been investing in running back and defensive ends the last couple of years in the first couple of rounds in the draft, it's time to start doing that with offensive linemen and maybe draft one in the first 3 rounds for the foreseeable future. Before we get into it tonight, this show is sponsored by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. You can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to your home. And I can tell you from experience, it's just as good as getting it fresh from the restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, Dave, let's get into it, because I think what a lot of people want to talk about today is the offense. The Bills offense, they scored 20 points versus the Jets, which is, a concern, I think, for a lot of fans, even though the Jets are a very good defense, and 20 points is pretty good when you look at what some other offenses have put up against this New York Jets defense. And if you count the weather, 20 points is still pretty solid, but the offense looked a little clunky. I want to start with some perspective. The Chiefs almost lost to Nate Hackett yesterday. Like, that almost happened. Mahomes and Josh Allen have the same amount of interceptions. Tua was 10 of 10, completed 10 passes yesterday for 145 yards. He would have been 9 for 28 for 85 yards if Michael Davis didn't trip. No one is perfect. And despite what Jerry Sullivan thinks, the Super Bowl is not next week. So teams, including the Bills, they do have a chance to go from a clunky looking offense to a shiny looking offense by the time we get to the postseason. But that doesn't mean there's not a reason for concern. Josh Allen has not been his usual self. You saw him miss Stephon Diggs. You saw him miss John Brown on a couple of big plays down the field in this game. Early in the game, you saw him not check the ball down and try to push the ball down the field. A lot of people were sort of questioning that early on. Ken Dorsey's play calling has been called into question. He didn't really pivot or try anything else. It was a lot of that, what we've seen lately dropping Josh Allen back, letting him make a playoff script if things fell apart. The Bills' skill position players, especially after Stephon Diggs, not exactly stepping up. You saw a ton of drops in this game, 2 crucial drops from Isaiah McKenzie. And the offensive line, as we've been talking about so far, has been a real concern. So you got Josh Allen, you've got Ken Dorsey, you've got the skill position players after Stephon Diggs, and you have the offensive line. If you are to point a finger at who you want to blame the most for this offense looking clunky this late in the season, where is your finger leaning? I know they all probably deserve a little chunk of blame. They all deserve some blame, but who do you think deserves the most blame of those 4 things?
Well, I'll start with who deserves the least, and that's Josh Allen. So we'll just get that out of the way right now. I think Josh Allen deserves the least amount of blame. If it wasn't for him, who knows what we would have been able to do. And I mean, we wouldn't be 10-3 without him. Okay. So let's just put that to the side for now. Ken Dorsey versus the O-line is an interesting debate. And I think that for me, as underwhelming as this offensive line has been, and I was hard on Spencer Brown during the game as well, made some comments about him. I've had concerns about this offensive line, even post-draft, even post-free agency, that we didn't really think about the long-term for this line. There were still question marks. It was the biggest question mark you and I had about the offense going in, and maybe about the whole team going into training camp. But for me right now, December 12th, 2022, the biggest question mark for me is Ken Dorsey. And I know that's kind of maybe unthinkable to say because the Bills are 10-3 and they're still one of the top scoring offenses in the league. And that's why I put so few of the blame on Josh Allen, because I think Josh Allen is able to mask and overcome a lot of maybe the play calling deficiency and a lot of the deficiency of the O-line. And when you get a combination of situations where the play calling doesn't mesh well with an underperforming offensive line, you are really in a tough spot, and you're putting so much on Josh Allen's shoulders to really steady the ship and to make something happen. Eric's done a great job, and Pro-Ant have done a great job in kind of breaking down some of the tendencies of Ken Dorsey this year, and the lack of creativity, some of the lack of carryover from the Brian Daboll offense. And like, by the way, just quick sidebar, like maybe an appreciation is due for Brian Daboll for some of those who maybe didn't appreciate him when he was here. RJ says it's Dorsey, raining and slushy, airline sucks and banged up. You're going into the top pass D and you call it D. I'm with you, RJ. I was critical of Ken Dorsey during the game as well. I thought they went away from the running game way too quickly. And I know the Jets have a very good run D, but 2 weeks ago, the Vikings were in a slugfest with the Jets early in that game. It was 3-3. They kept feeding the ball to Dalvin Cook all game. He only ended up with 20 carries for 86 yards, which is not a Dalvin Cook-ish game, but still over 4 per carry, and they gave him the rock. And that was in good conditions. So I do have to call into question somewhat of the play calling, not really lining up with the conditions, not really lining up maybe with the personnel. But I will say one of the silver linings, I think, from a play calling perspective in this game was they did make a concerted effort to get the ball in Knox's hands early, which we did call for in the pregame, but it kind of faded, right?
Yeah.
We saw them going after Knox early, some of those scripted plays, and then it kind of faded from there. Ken Dorsey, to me, could potentially be the biggest thing holding this team back offensive wise. And if there's only 4 more games to figure it out before the playoffs. So we got to figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, looking, we got Spin coming in here and saying this team never attacks the middle of the field. I saw that sort of like chart today that showed that the Buffalo Bills really didn't attempt a ton of passes over the middle of the field, which is interesting considering the DVOA of the Jets over the middle of the field is not the greatest. But then, Pro Football Focus said within 0 to 10 yards, Josh Allen was 8 of 10 over the middle of the football field. So I have to go back and I have to double watch the football game because I'm not sure how reliable either statistic is from what I've seen. So I have to go back and watch that football game. But I do think that would be a concern, is the fact that this team is not attacking the middle of the football field. And who is a guy that used to get the ball over the middle of the football field all the time? It was Cole Beasley. I really liked that first drive from Ken Dorsey. First play manufactures a touch for Dawson Knox. Second play, he ran the ball. He took Stephon Diggs off the field. I know Jim Nantz made a big deal about them taking Stephon Diggs off the field. Like, oh, it must be a run. The Bills have done that a ton this year and thrown the football. And it's actually been pretty effective off the play action, etc. So I think Jim Nantz was kind of talking out of his ass a little bit. He happened to be right on that particular play. But in terms of the Bills,
you besmirch Jim Nantz.
in terms of him, in terms of the Bills tipping the play by taking Stephon Diggs off the field, I'm not as sure that Jim Nantz was 100% correct, just because he was correct in that instance. And then the next play, again, window dressing, motion. Stephon Diggs moved from one side of the field to the other side of the field, got him into the slot, got a good matchup. Josh Allen he was trying to look off CJ Mosley for a little bit too long. He threw the ball too far out in front of Stephon Diggs. That would have been a big play to start the game. Just like Stephon Diggs had a big play in the first Jets game on the first drive on Sauce Gardner, Josh Allen could have had a huge play down the field to Stephon Diggs in this one as well. But after that, I mean, it was just a whole lot of yikes for a very, very long time. I mean, Ken Dorsey, you didn't see a lot of motion. You didn't see a lot of that pony package like we saw last week with Nyheim Hines and James Cook. You didn't see a lot of window dressing. You didn't see a lot of scheming people open. It was Josh Allen in the shotgun. Let's have our wide receivers run their routes. And if no one gets open, which is probably going to happen because the New York Jets have a very good secondary, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter, then Josh Allen will just go make a playoff script. And that's what this offense has been for too long. Now, Ken Dorsey is not the only one to blame here.
Right.
Josh Allen did miss some dink and dunks that he could have had in this game. He missed some checkdowns. There were some drops. Isaiah McKenzie with 2 huge third down drops in this game. Devin Singletary, when we could have iced the game and we could have kept running the clock, he dropped one on that last offensive drive. The offensive line, Deion Dawkins took some penalties in this game. Roger Saffold has been average. Spencer Brown continues to get blown up week after week. Might be time to start talking David Questenberry at right tackle. We'll get to that in a little bit. But in these conditions, if you're Ken Dorsey, as much as other position groups have struggled, I really think that if the play calling was different, we could have made it work and we could have been a little bit more efficient. And that's where I'm struggling right now, because I don't want to lay it all on the lap of Ken Dorsey, because I think everyone shares responsibility. But I do think this offense would look less clunky if, Ken Dorsey was a more experienced offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going through his growing pains right now, right? As a first-year play caller, he inherited the keys to a very nice car. And I believe, and I've said this in the past, maybe several weeks back, that he's letting Josh Allen, I think, at times kind of make up for some of his lack of creativity and knowing that he can get bailed out from Josh at times. I do think that there have been spurts and flashes where he's shown some really nice abilities to mix in some scripted plays. And I think he just needs to continue growing as a play caller. But the problem with that, right, is you have a Super Bowl ready team. And again, they're the 1 seed in the AFC right now. So it's very, very nitpicky, but you have a team that's ready to go all the way, and you cannot, you can't be the reason that this team stalls, right? If you're Ken Dorsey. And there's a lot of pressure on him. And people said before the season that, oh, there's not a lot of pressure on him because he'll just run Daboll's offense. Josh is great, blah, blah, blah. But I sat there and said, there is pressure on him, whether we want to admit it or not. He has pressure on him. And now we're seeing how sometimes he can get into these funks. And people want to run Brian Daboll out of town for that early on in his tenure. And Ken Dorsey's feeling some of the heat right now himself as well.
Yeah. And you were spot on there. He's taking his lumps, he's taking his growing pains. We're still 10-3, and we're still about to clinch a playoff berth likely next week. And we still have a chance to win the AFC East. We're in the driver's seat there, and we still have a chance to be the 1 seed. We are light years ahead record wise where we were last year. Last year we were sitting at 7-6 right now. Right now we're sitting at 10-3. So we're light years ahead of where we even were last year against a much tougher schedule, having dealt with so many more injuries and so much more adversity. But just what angered me in this game was, we talked about in the pregame show, That Jets defense is good, man. They're good. And they have so many good players in the secondary, and you're just not going to beat them man for man every single time. And the lack of putting defenders in conflict by motioning guys and utilizing Naheem Hines on those Jets sweeps, the lack of just not giving the Jets defensive ends and defensive tackles even the slightest threat of the run to think about outside of a Josh Allen scramble. That's what irked me the most, and that's what's going to stick in my claw, throughout the rest of this week and heading into that into that Miami Dolphins game that we're going to have coming up here next Saturday. Let's get to some more positive though, because there was a whole other side of the field, and that is the defense. And the defense had an extraordinary day. I'm going to start with my stat of the week here. The Buffalo Bills pass rush, 16 pressures, 4 sacks, 4 hits, and 8 hurries. Gregory Rousseau himself had 4 pressures, 2 sacks, 2 hurries, a batted ball, and a forced fumble. I wonder if anyone maybe predicted that in the pregame show. He over-delivered because I said 5 pressures, a sack, and a forced fumble. He only had 4 pressures, but he had 2 sacks and a forced fumble.
Hey.
Daquan Jones, 2 pressures, 2 hits. Ed Oliver knocked Mike White out the first time. Matt Milano absolutely plastered him, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Knocked Mike White out a second time. Kudos to Mike White for coming back into that football game. What an absolute warrior that guy was yesterday. But between White and even Joe Flacco when he was in there, I mean, White was hanging in there tough and making some good throws, but they were clearly uncomfortable all day. When the Bills were like shooting Tremaine Edmonds up on like those A-gap blitzes, Mike White just could not wait to get that ball out of his hands. He wanted no part of Tremaine Edmonds coming out in over the middle of the field, but that's probably what ultimately won us this game was this Buffalo Bills pass rush.
Pass rush was great. Interior pass rush, obviously incredible too. I mean, when Flacco came in, forced the fumble, unfortunately didn't get it back, but forced the fumble on Flacco. Tons of hits on Mike White. I mean, you said it, like my hat's off to Mike White. Okay. Like that dude, he made some really nice throws, and we're going to talk about this later too, but on some 3rd and longs too, like this guy delivered some
It was
nice
the same
throws.
play, which ticked me off.
Yeah. Well, that too, but I will say this. I mean, Mike White, he's not probably going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL long term, but he is going to have a Chase Daniel-like, Jim Sorgi-like career in the NFL, Matt Barkley-like
stronger
career.
arm, Tyler Heineke maybe. Like
he will have his chances to be a backup for a team, and he will have his chances in a way where a starter gets injured, he can be serviceable. So he's earned himself a lot of respect, obviously, from that locker room, given the Mike White shirts they were wearing and all that. But to get back to your main point, the defensive line, man, Gregory Rousseau showed up in a big way this game. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo were talking about it in the pregame, how it's time for him to step up in the absence of Von Miller. He was all over the field, Ed Oliver as well, and Rousseau batting down. Like, what I liked about Rousseau's game was he contributed in multiple ways, right? He contributed rushing the passer. He contributed against the run. He contributed in knocking balls down. Like, he was a total package defensive end in this game, and it just really stings to think like what that duo of him and Von Miller could have been down this home stretch. But I digress, and just hats off to this defensive line getting pressure on Mike White all day, really.
Yeah, and our player of the game this week is Matt Milano. 9 total tackles, 1 fumble recovery, 6 defensive stops. He absolutely laid the lumber on Mike White. And if Mike White wasn't knocked out of this football game, if he wasn't uncomfortable, we might lose this football game because it was Joe Flacco who fumbled, right? Well, Gregory Rousseau knocked it out of Joe Flacco's hands. The offense stalled under Joe Flacco, so they lost essentially a couple of offensive possessions with Mike White not on the field because Joe Flacco couldn't move the ball. We only won by 8 points. Getting Mike White off the field, getting him uncomfortable, those took away offensive possessions from the Jets, offensive possessions that they sorely needed. So Matt Milano and Ed Oliver, both with those big hits on Mike White, took away New York Jet possessions by putting the backup quarterback on the field. So Matt Milano, player of the game, by just absolutely once again lighting up the stat line. And despite what Miami Dolphins fans, it was Dolphins fans coming onto social media today, one of the cleanest players there is,
Bitter.
and
So
he
bitter.
still plays the game. You're not going to see someone play the game more violently, but as clean as Matt Milano. Like, he has a way of just, I mean, absolutely textbook the way he laid the lumber on Mike White, and thankfully Mike White is okay. The drive of the day for me, and this could be different for you. For me, I'm actually going to go defense here with my drive of the day, which is something I don't typically do. The Bills were up 20-9. Sam Martin just got blocked for a safety. Thankfully, that ball went out of the back of the end zone, and it was a safety. The Jets get the ball on the punt from Sam Martin on the onside, or on the safety punt. Mike White hits Garrett Wilson for 14 yards. There's a 13-yard run by Bam Knight. There's an 8-yard catch from Bam Knight. All of a sudden, there's 6-ish minutes left in the game. The Jets are driving to make it a one-score game with 6-ish minutes. It's like a legit game again. But then Michael Carter gets the ball. Damar Hamlin with the peanut punch. Matt Milano with the fumble recovery. That was essentially the ball game, because Robert Saleh, I think, made a huge mistake not going for it on that 4th and 1 with
agree.
about with a couple of minutes left there. But that was essentially, I took a sigh of relief. I pretty much knew the game was over the second the Buffalo Bills recovered that Michael Carter fumble. So that's my drive of the game, because I think that's what essentially iced it.
That was a great drive, and obviously, like, the Bills' offense didn't do any favors getting the ball back after that, but obviously prevented the Jets from going down and scoring. I will say this, for me, it's easy to point to that drive before the end of the half and say, like, the Bills went up 7-0 right before the half. The Jets obviously came out, didn't really do anything. They didn't try to do anything. There wasn't enough time before the end of the half. So Bills go in 7-0 at the half, right? Jets come out, first possession of the second half, a possession where the Bills defense all year has been really, really good, by the way. As many coin tosses as the Bills have lost, they've been on defense for that first possession of the second half a lot of times this year, and they have done an excellent job for the most part in forcing 3-and-outs or whatever, that first possession of the opposing team. Not so much in this game, right? The Jets go down 10 plays, 72 yards in 5 minutes, capped off by that Bam Knight touchdown, and boom, all of a sudden the Jets are tied in this game 7-7. I thought the very next drive, the Bills go 6 plays, 75 yards. For me, for the touchdown, obviously capped off by the Josh Allen run. For me, that was the big drive. That was obviously the drive that had the big Stephon Diggs pass, where he just absolutely schooled the defensive back on that route and kind of cut it up towards the sideline for 32 yards. So the Bills, for me, as slow as they had been on offense, I know they scored before the half. Getting that touchdown to immediately answer the Jets' opening of the second half touchdown and go back up 14-7, I'm going to say that's my drive of the game.
All right. Some other positives from this football game. What are some other positives outside of, like, maybe some of the things that we've talked about that you take away from this W against the New York Jets?
Well, we talked about the defensive line. That was a positive. I thought Jordan Poyer's presence was felt, made some nice big hits. There was the questionable one on the sideline to Garrett Wilson that Jets fans were complaining about. Probably should have been a penalty, but it wasn't. So Jordan Poyer being back in and making his presence felt was nice. Look, Trey White playing 100% of the snaps, I thought, was a positive takeaway from this game. We're going to talk about the Kaiir Elam situation here in a bit, but we said in the pregame, right? Like, it'd be nice if Trey got like a majority of those CB1 snaps, and then maybe there was a rotation at CB2. Not so much the rotation part, but Trey White getting 100% of snaps, I think, is a positive. He's still clearly coming back, right? He's not himself, and I'm not, that's not a knock on him. I'm actually saying it as a positive that he played 100% of the snaps. So good on him for that. And then Knox was QB of the game on that. I mean, that was just stupid by the Jets, but hey, getting Knox involved in that somersault touchdown was nice. I know he led the team with 4 catches, so it was nice to see him get involved, but I did like seeing Trey White get 100% of the snaps as well.
Yeah, Jordan Poyer's stat line: 6 tackles, 2 stops, targeted once for 5 yards. Dawson Knox had 4 for 41, the touchdown. And he also had that sort of, he went to go take that snap, and CJ Mosley, like Bobby Boucher, jumped over that line. That could have been drive of the game too, because that helped the Buffalo Bills get 7 points going into halftime. Stephen believes, I love this one. No turnovers. That was another big one. If the Buffalo Bills turned the ball over even once in that football game, we could be talking about a different outcome. The margin of error, the margin for error in this game was very, very thin.
Yes.
Richard Greenwood said Shaq Lawson, really that whole defensive line, even Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa, as a unit, there are no, like, Rousseau. I think Oliver and Jones stood out the most as individuals, but as a unit, they all really, really, stood out. And Roy Collins said 4 catches, 41 yards, led the team. That's sad. Some weeks that kind of happens, right? Like some week, like the weather, the defense you were playing, we got the dubs. So I'm not too upset about that. Some other positives that I had, special teams, like legitimately, Tyler Bass kicking in those conditions, 2 for 2, extra points, 2 for 2, field goals with that huge long of 49 in that weather. Sam Martin, other than the block, which I don't really think was on him, it didn't really have a freaking chance. He didn't Matt Hockett and hold the ball for too long. I mean, he just didn't have a chance. They didn't block it correctly. 7 punts, 347 yards, 2 inside the 20. Sam Martin was the MVP of the first half, I think. And then Nyheim Hines, he continues attacking the ball on special teams. Looks like Andre Roberts back there. The kick returns were meh, but 3 punt returns for 42 yards and a long of 23. It was a really good day from Nyheim Hines, and the Buffalo Bills continue to have one of the best special teams units in the National Football League. And a lot of people now are starting to say, listen, even if he doesn't have a role on offense until 2023, the way he's contributing on the return units are sort of making Nyheim Hines worth Zach Moss and a 7th round pick, 5th round pick, whatever it was. He's definitely worth the capital we spent on him, even if his role this year is only special teams.
He's definitely worth it. And the Bills have also set themselves up in the event that Devin Singletary's not with the team next year. Then that Nyheim Hines trade, look, it's not a short-term investment for this Bills team with Nyheim Hines. It's a 2 to 3 year investment, it looks like, based on what's left on his contract. So special teams contributor right away. We'll see what kind of role he has in the offense, even going forward this year and into next year. But the running back usage is still a little bit baffling to me as far as like just using them in the run game. So kind of put that to the side for the moment. But special teams, big day for special teams.
Steven believes, pointed this one out. I think it was the onside kick, or not the onside. I keep saying onside. The safety punt. It looked like Braxton Berrios was going to break it, and Tyler Matakevich just boom, he was there, and he took Berrios down. Even if it wasn't on that one, it was on one of them where Tyler Matakevich just went crazy. He always gets down there. He's an absolute menace on teams. And Walter Scale says, even every Hines catch scared the hell out of me. But guess what? He caught it. Yes. I don't think Isaiah McKenzie would have caught all of those. I don't think Isaiah McKenzie would have caught all of those. I don't think Jamison Crowder might have caught all of those. But whoever else we've sort of been rotating back there since Andre Roberts. There's Marquez Stevenson. I don't. Sorry, Ryan Sullivan. Sorry, Sports Rock. I don't think Marquez Stevenson would have fielded all of those punts the way they needed to be fielded in those kind of weather conditions. Even if they were a little scary, Nyheim Hines did a great job. Onto maybe some negatives or some critiques, some things that the Buffalo Bills need to work on. The one that stood out to me, I know you want to talk about cornerbacks, but the one that stood out to me was the running backs in the running game outside of Josh Allen. I understand we're still the only team in the National Football League that's ran for over 100 yards in every game this season, which blows my mind. But Singletary, 8 carries for 39 yards, 1 catch for 4 yards. He had that big drop late that stopped the clock. Cook, 4 carries for 6 yards, 1 catch for 9. Hines, 1 carry for 3 yards, 1 catch for 4 yards. I'm not even mad at the running backs because the running backs really didn't have a shot in this football game. I don't think that Ken Dorsey made the run game enough of a priority. I don't think he took enough pressure, and I don't think he put enough on the. I don't even say he took enough pressure off of Josh Allen. I don't think he put enough into the heads of the New York Jets front seven to make them think about what the Buffalo Bills could possibly do. And then that goes and puts more pressure on the shoulders of Josh Allen. So that was, to me, the most disappointing thing. And I don't even know how much I blame the running backs for it.
What's disappointing to me is it seems like a scared approach. And what I mean by that is, okay, the Jets have a good defensive front. They had Quinnen Williams in there. I know he went out of the game. Okay, fine. But the Jets are a good defensive front. And it's probably going to be a slugfest if you try to run the ball on them at volume, right? And like I said, the Vikings did this. They weren't scared to keep at it. I feel like the Bills should have kept at it, or at least started with it and tried to keep at it a little bit more than they did, because even against a good defensive front, if you have enough possession and you're hitting those body blows all game, you'll eventually break one. James Cook will eventually break, a 15 or a 20-yard run. But they just never had that chance. And I felt like the Bills were super one-dimensional. It made it easier on the Jets defense to just sit back there and just play the pass. And so that's really where my issue was. I mean, I made a comment on Twitter about we were too early to anoint James Cook, but in reality, it's not even about James Cook. It was more about the usage overall, about the backs in the running game. And it was a disappointment for sure. And no Reggie Gilliam affected the run game. Definitely, no doubt about it. But you still gotta, you can't let Reggie Gilliam being out scare you away from trying to run the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, even Tony Romo was saying, run up the middle against that wide 9 alignment, and Devin Singletary 8 for 39. Like, he was effective. He had a decent yard per carry clip. When he did get the ball, he just wasn't getting it enough. Jared Keller comes in saying Cook can't block. I know on that one screenplay to Stephon Diggs, he missed a block, but for the most part, James Cook's been pretty solid, at least in pass protection when he's back there as Josh Allen's protector. Is Singletary better? Yeah, but I don't think Cook has been as bad. There was just one play that got highlighted by Tony Romo there. All right, let's get to the cornerbacks. The Buffalo Bills had a CB1 and a CB2, and they were locked down for the first time, it seems like, in a long time. Cornerback number 1 was Trey White, to mixed results. Obviously, he's still working his way back from the ACL. You mentioned it earlier. The fact that he played every snap, he's getting more comfortable, is more important than the fact that he didn't look like an all-pro. That will come with time as he gets more comfortable. He gets more confident in that knee. On the other side, there was Dane Jackson. And I was not happy with Dane Jackson the entire game. I was shouting expletives at my TV the entire game. I was not happy with the catches he was giving up. Again, he doesn't make plays for the ball when the ball is in the air, which just irritates the heck out of me. Aaron Quinn did a good job of talking me down today in our Cover One group chat, talking about how, listen, the Buffalo Bills don't care about yards. They care about points. And the Buffalo Bills gave up 12 points in that game. 2 of them were on the offense or on the special teams unit. So it was really 10 points that the Buffalo Bills gave up in that football game. Dane Jackson was just fine. But even AQ pointed out the issue that you have with Dane Jackson. Even Trey White was bad. DeMar Hamlin was bad. Teron Johnson was not great yesterday. And the weather could have had something to do with it a little bit. The tackling at the line of scrimmage. There was a couple of times where Dane Jackson gave buffer. They got the ball out into the hands of Garrett Wilson, or it was Denzel Mims, and Dane Jackson just whiffs on the tackle. Garrett Wilson catches the ball over the middle of the field. Dane Jackson goes to tackle low, just completely whiffs. Garrett Wilson gains an extra 10 yards. It's frustrating watching Dane Jackson go out there and not only give up yards when he's targeted, even though that might be part of the scheme. It's also frustrating watching him miss tackles, especially knowing he's an RFA at the end of the year and you have a first-round pick that you're sitting on. That's what's frustrating the most to me. But what are your thoughts on Kyrie Elam not getting a snap in this football game?
It's frustrating, and I will say I'm a huge Leslie Frazier fan, but his comments today were equally as frustrating to me. Making the comment about we like what we saw from Dane, so we kept going with it like that. Yeah, Pete hit it on the head here. Frazier's quote about Dane Kyrie today was wild. If you haven't heard it, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he basically said something to the effect of, we liked what Dane was doing, so we kept him in there the whole time, basically. And they weren't going to give Kyrie a chance in that game because they liked how Dane was playing. Bill's given up a ton of 3rd and longs. Yes, he did have 2.
He did
PDs.
Rebound late. Yeah.
Yes, he did. But this is no longer just a one-off, right? This is a trend now for Dane Jackson, and giving up what seems to be big plays game after game. And now that Trey White's back, it's not even necessarily big plays against the wide receiver ones, although the one you mentioned was against Garrett Wilson. Bills were fortunate that Corey Davis went out of the game early, to be honest, because that could have been a bigger factor later in the game against a guy like Dane Jackson. But I will say, yes, Aaron Quinn and others have pointed out, like, he's average. He's not good. He's not bad. He's average. And if you're okay with that, then we're just going to be having the same conversation we had with Levi Wallace, with Josh Norman, with whatever other cornerback we had opposite of Trey White. It goes against what McDermott said today. Yeah, you love to have one guy over there. Okay, like, well, if you did that, it's Dane Jackson, and you're not going to give your first round pick a chance to play. That's the part that's frustrating to me. It's not like you have Dane Jackson and Josh Norman, and you're benching Josh Norman and you're giving Dane Jackson 100% of the snaps. That's not the situation. You have a first round pick that you traded up for, by the way, albeit it was only 2 spots, but you did trade up for this guy, and Bills embedded all the videos. Like, you hype this guy up, Bills organization, like not us. Yes, we love Kaiir Elam, but like, you hype this guy up too. So why isn't he getting playing time? Why is he not even getting a snap in this game other than one special team snap? That was all he got. Steve says, should Elam get reps against Miami? See if it, I mean, the Chargers did this last night.
Yeah, they were all over these wide receivers in the line of scrimmage, and Eric Turner in the Cover One group chat was like, are we saving Kaiir Elam for this? But my question is like, why would you put Kaiir Elam cold after practically not playing for like a month onto the field against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? So as much as I want to believe that maybe the Buffalo Bills are saving Kaiir Elam for the Miami Dolphins, I also think it would be incredibly stupid to throw him onto the field cold against some of these guys too.
Like,
so.
but and that, it just seems so like that's over engineering it, in my opinion. Like, that's way over engineering it, and like, what are you doing that for? Like, this guy needs reps, right? I mean,
Sale comes in and says McDermott drafts rookies and doesn't trust them. Here's my problem. He drafted Trey White and trusted him right away. Trey White played his whole rookie season. Why isn't Kaiir Elam playing his whole rookie season? Like, come on. Like, Terrell Bernard this, Zach Moss this, Devin Singleton. The last time the Bills drafted a player at Kaiir Elam's position that early, he started all 16 games. He might have been hurt, but he played every game. Kaiir Elam should be playing every game. Like, that's your cornerback duo of the future, Trey White and Kaiir Elam. Like, I need to see it. It was great that they finally realized that 100-year-old Xavier Rhodes isn't better than Kaiir Elam, but then to not play Kaiir Elam at all, it was frustrating. And just this team's a different place than it was in 2017. Yeah, okay, I guess, but still, like, I'm
just tired. I'm just tired of the spin zone around like why he's not playing.
Yeah,
like that's what I'm just tired of. Like, you can spin it all you want. The fact that your first round corner is not playing when it's clearly a position you need help at. I'm tired of the spin. Honestly, I really am. And I'm not talking about you spin 0481 in the chat. I'm talking about the general spin around why Kaiir Elam's not playing.
And he's played, like, other than the Pittsburgh game too, he's played relatively well when he's been in there, which is again another part of the frustration. Like, I don't feel like, other than the Pittsburgh game, I don't feel like Kaiir Elam's done anything when on the field to deserve being taken off of the field. So that's just another thing that is super interesting to me. We got a great point from Mattis Center in the comment section. So that sort of puts a bow on the Bills game, and we're still going to talk Bills, but we're going to shift our focus a little bit because there were a lot of jabronis this week.
Jabroni, you are 3 seconds away, and The Rock means 3 seconds away from The Rock to lay the smackdown on your candy ass.
I gotta stop you though. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
So we got this comment here to kick off the Jabroni segment from Mattis Center, and multiple outlets were reporting this yesterday. It was like 50, 60 degrees in SoFi Stadium last night, and the Miami Dolphins had warmers on their bench to keep the bench warm in like the 50 to 60 degree weather. The Miami Dolphins are coming into Buffalo next week on a short week after a California trip, and it looks like there's going to be lake effect snow on Saturday night in Orchard Park. Man, this might be a foreshadowing of next week's Jabroni of the Week, but yeah, Jabroni of the Week to the Miami Dolphins for bringing heat warmers to Los Angeles. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if this is true, like, which by all accounts, it seems to be like multiple people
Yeah.
reporting on it. Like, is this like a reverse psychology thing to kind of like get in the Bills' head and pump the Bills will be like, yeah, like it's gonna be cold here, like you're never gonna have a chance, and like Dolphins would be like, no, it's not a big like it's weird, man. It's just weird. But again, look, each individual game has their own set of circumstances. They're going in there thinking, okay, like we are going to try to be as comfortable as possible. They have the shorter turnaround time now, right? Sunday night game, West Coast coming back now to play the Bills on a Saturday as opposed to a Sunday. Look, like I just said, I was sick of the spin coming from one Bills drive. Like, I don't know how you spin this in any positive light. Like, I'm trying to, but like, this is just bad if you're the Miami Dolphins. It's not even bad. It's just funny. And it's like kind of humiliating, honestly. Like, if you're a Dolphins fan, like, how can you do anything but be embarrassed about this situation?
We got Stephen Beliefs coming in saying Jerry Sullivan should be the Jabroni of the Week.
He was mine.
So yeah, I mean, speak on it a little bit. Speak on why Jerry Sullivan is your Jabroni of the Week.
This has been a
regular occurrence.
A big topic in the Cover One group chat as well over the last 24 hours. We have some guys like Greg Vorse and people who have been like in like official credentialed media situations and like reporting situations, and it's like there is a way to get the information you want to get, and there's a protocol and a professionalism that you should follow. And I believe that Jerry Sullivan feels like he's past the point of needing to be professional, and he just kind of does what he wants. As Steve says, rather than ask a question, he inserts a statement in order to become the story. And then News for Buffalo, of course, puts out this promotion later on this evening about how Jerry Sullivan states that the Bills offense isn't Super Bowl ready. And it's just like the clickbaitiest thing you've ever seen. And it's just annoying. But I will say we have an anti-Jabroni, and that anti-Jabroni is Josh Allen and the way that he handled that statement from Jerry Sullivan. And it's like Voldemort against Harry Potter in this situation, man. You got them like both battling each other. And for you Harry Potter fans, it's like basically good and evil against each other. And Josh handled it, man. He was ready for it. And I can't with Jerry Sullivan anymore, man. I just can't.
Yeah, when I said Jerry Sullivan's making a regular appearance, he was the guy last year who asked Hyde and Poyer if they were embarrassed with their performance after that Monday night, football debacle in that win game. But for those of you who might have missed it, and Roy, I'm going to get to your point right now. Jerry Sullivan didn't ask a question to Josh Allen. Jerry Sullivan made a statement to Josh Allen during his press conference. He said, "Your offense is not good enough to win a Super Bowl right now." That's a fair statement to make. But why are you making a statement and not asking a question? Jerry Sullivan, and I spent the time, I read his article from top to bottom today. I think I read it twice just to make sure I didn't mess anything up. It was a quality article with valid criticisms of this offense. My problem with Jerry Sullivan is, number one, he didn't ask a question. And number two, he went into that room and he tried to bait Josh Allen into a clickbait-worthy response in order to pump up or buff up or fluff up an article that he already wrote. No question was asked. No understanding was sought. No one got any clarity at what the issues are on this offense. And he failed to do his job. He failed his audience. Instead of going in there and trying to figure out what the problem was and ask questions and further his understanding, he went in there and looked for a soundbite to make his article that he had already written more marketable. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. So I try not to swear as much on the show anymore, but fuck you, Jerry Sullivan. And I'm so sick of these beat reporters who 10 years ago, Jerry bought them a coffee, read one of their articles and patted him on the back and told him how proud of him they were. And so now they just fawn at his feet and they defend him to no end. It's unprofessional, bottom line, Pete Nana says, and it is. And I'm sick and tired of these beat guys defending it. It's disgusting. The guy does not deserve a press credential.
It's people here know what is going on. People here are not stupid. People here are very smart. They can see that there are two factions of what we'll call media, if you want to call it that. Like whatever. I mean, call it whatever you want. There's the beat and the Jerry Sullivans of the world who will stick together through thick and thin because they're the old media, the old guard, the old way of doing things. They have these credentials that they hang, these press credentials that they hang over everyone's head, right? Like we've got these credentials. We're the ones in the room. We're the one like making a big deal about going back into the locker room, getting their stories. And like, there are a few good ones, right? Like there are a few good ones, like as much as people get annoyed by Tim Graham, maybe like, but he has some really good reporting, right? But for the most part, it's the old guard beat and these credentialed reporters that hang that stuff over the heads of other networks that are not like Cover One and others that are putting out a lot of good information and content. Maybe it's not reporting, but a lot of good information. And I think they're threatened, right? And Jerry doesn't care anymore because he's at a point in time where like he's done his thing and like he can just feel like he does whatever he wants. And it's not going to matter anymore to him because there is a reputation that he has and there's a history that he has and there's nothing else. There's nothing that's going to change his mind on any of this stuff. So that's how I see it. I see it as they don't like that there are other people out there talking about the Bills, analyzing the Bills, questioning the Bills objectively and doing things like that. And I see it that way. That's my opinion.
I need more people who are out there tweeting pregame, like who's lining up at CB2 and like what the offensive line looks like from left to right when there's an injury. I need more of that and less like what Von Miller's Dreamathon shirt he's wearing that day or fighting over each other to get a shot of Josh Allen's thumbs up as he walks into the locker room. Like I need more real reporting. That would be a nice change of pace, but there were multiple jabronis this week. Speaking of not real reporting, how about Emmanuel Aiko? Maybe go off a little bit off from the Bills topic this week. So Emmanuel Aiko, for those of you who don't know of FS1 lore, he's been calling Justin Herbert a social media quarterback. And he's been going off about the last month, just completely tarnishing Justin Herbert, going off on Justin Herbert, calling him a social media quarterback.
What does that mean? Someone explain to me.
He's saying he's all flash and not a winner. He has highlight reel plays, but his game in totality is not a good game. And the Los Angeles Chargers denied him a sideline pass to their game versus Miami. They still press credentialed him, but they denied him a pass to the sideline, with which he requested. And Emmanuel Aiko responds by writing a rap song dissing Justin Herbert and posting it on social media. It was bad. It was really bad. I mean, he has spent the whole month taking shots at Justin Herbert in an effort to build Tua up. I think Brett Coleman said it best. If you have to tear down another guy in order to show the worth of Tua, then maybe you're in the wrong business because you're not very good at analyzing football players. If you have to tear someone else down to make someone else look good. So good for the Chargers for giving Emmanuel Aiko a taste of his own medicine and denying him that sideline pass. There's no coming back from it. He's double, triple, quadrupling down on it. Mina Kimes is just trampling all over him on social media. Emmanuel Hako might have just walked himself out of his next contract at FS1. Just a brutal month for him.
Brutal month for him. And didn't he make some comment about how he was going to give something up if I don't even remember what he said, but Kyle Knapp had retweeted it. But the problem is these guys double down and they try to spin their way out of it, like these other things, like guys like Nick Wright and others. I mean, me personally, I ignore these guys. I don't engage with them. I read what they had to say because obviously it's all over social media, but I'm one person. I'm not going to give them my click. And that's just me doing my part.
Someone says, wasn't Ako a Bill? I think it was his brother, Emmanuel. I think it was his brother, Sam Ako, who was a Bill, not Emmanuel. I really hope. I really hope that
he wasn't. Wasn't he on the? I thought he was the Bears. No,
the Bears. Yeah, he might have been one other place. I think he's got 3 career tackles, which is I think the same number of completions Tua had last night. So
no, he wasn't. He wasn't Bears. He was Browns, Eagles, Giants, and Eagles again. Eagles. That's where I remember him from. Eagles.
And yeah, I got one more jabroni before we close this thing out, and this one is back to sort of Bills Jets. Mike White, like I have a ton of respect for that kid, and I have a ton of respect for the game he had. And maybe I'm just being too mean because Jets fans are looking to cope after, Connor Hughes stepped up, said the Jets made Josh Allen look like a scrub, saying that they were, AFC contenders. And since then they've gone 1-2 and their season's sort of fallen off a cliff a little bit. So they're coping, they're reeling right now. I don't want to pile on too much, but I've seen a number of people on social media making some like really bold statements about Mike White. The guy put up 12 points yesterday. And just a week prior, threw the game-sealing interception to end the game. Someone tweeted, and these are content creators, people with thousands and thousands of followers, tweeted that he was the toughest QB in the league. There's just not enough sample size to make a statement like that. That was a gutty performance. You can celebrate that performance without saying he's the toughest quarterback in the entirety of the National Football League. Josh Allen has just played an entire month and gone 3-1 with a sprained elbow. That's pretty damn tough. Sprained throwing elbow. You don't have to diminish what other people have done to complement what Mike White has done. And I've seen a number of Jets content creators today say that Mike White has proven over the course of the last 3 games that he is the franchise's quarterback.
Good. By all means, I'll let him be.
He would have to throw 5 touchdowns a game and win out and then go win a playoff game for him to be considered the franchise quarterback of the New York Jets heading into 2023. Could he be a part of a quarterback competition next year for the New York Jets? Sure. Can you be optimistic about Mike White? Sure. But let's stop calling him the toughest player in the league and let's stop calling him a franchise quarterback. It's 3 games. After last year when he played 3 games and he's had just as many bad games as he's had good games. I just think those bold statements and who knows, like I was probably talking about EJ Manuel like that. I was probably talking about Trent Edwards like that. I'm pretty sure I probably made those statements about Jeff Toole. So maybe this is just me now seeing how awful those statements were when I was when we were down bad at the quarterback position.
We were down bad, but I don't think I ever got to the point where I thought any of those guys were the toughest quarterback in the league. I thought JP Lossman was a pretty tough guy for as many hits as he took, but man, that is a bold statement. But again, one person is all it takes to make a statement like that and catches fire, and all of a sudden you're talking about Mike White. Look, and I respect Mike White. Right. I think he is tough. And I think that, he can be, like I said, have a nice career in the NFL. But I mean, to put him, like you said, put it in perspective, it's been 3 games. You talk about guys like Matt Stafford, Josh Allen, like these guys have been through a lot. Matt Stafford, especially. He's the one that comes to mind for me when you think about tough quarterbacks in the league. He's probably right up there for me, along with Josh Allen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we close things out tonight, it is the holiday season, and no better gift out there than Cover One Pass Club access. You can subscribe today for $57 a year. You get a shirt, a decal, exclusive members only content. People like Anthony and Eric, they're doing, private YouTube sessions with people, answering questions, giving you scouting reports, analytical analysis, access to our Cover One community on Slack and all the Cover One contributors, and also some great behind the scenes content. So for $57 a year, you can support us here at Cover One with the Cover One Pass subscription. And if you're looking to support us, all you got to do is, it's real simple. Just take that finger, smash that like button before you head out of here. And if you think somebody would enjoy this show, the Air Raid Hour, click that little copy button and share with anyone you think might enjoy. Word of mouth is the number one way to spread things like this, and we would always appreciate you doing so. And if you're watching on demand, leave a comment. And if you're listening, you can find us on all major podcasting platforms by searching Air Raid Buffalo on the treadmill, on the ride to work, before you go to bed. I'm pretty sure you could fall asleep to the sounds of us talking Buffalo Bills football. But before we go, Dave, any parting thoughts?
Look, I'm glad we won.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there are still some concerns that there's 4 games left in the regular season to try to wrap up this one seed, win the division. This Miami game's big. The way that Miami has played the last 2 weeks has firmly put the ball back in the Bills' court as far as the court of expectation, right? The court of expectation now is that the Bills go in and win this game at home in the snow, whatever the weather ends up being. Miami's down the last 2 games, have not played well. So again, things change very rapidly in this league. A few weeks ago, Miami was the talk of the town. I would enjoy the show if this was the halfway point of the show. Well, thank you, Spin. That's how you know Spin's been watching our show for a long time, because we in the off season during the draft, we go like 2 hours easy.
I think we've done some like 2 hour 45 minutes where like Greg Tom said us popped in at the end and we like, you guys are still on. It's like almost midnight. There was a lot of good stuff to talk about this game, but like not a lot of stuff to talk about from this football game. So this is a little short one today.
Still over an hour.
Still over an hour. We made it. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. You can catch us again on Saturday. Unfortunately, both of us have some conflicts on Saturday, so we can't do a live show. So we will have a pre-recorded show, probably dropping around noon, 1 o'clock on Saturday. You can watch it. You can enjoy it leading up to Bills Dolphins on Saturday night. I'll be watching the game on my phone.
I'll be at a wedding.
From a wedding. You'll also be at a wedding. So we're going to be some rude wedding guests, and we're going to be, at least mine is a Buffalo wedding. I won't be in Buffalo, but it's a lot of Buffalo people. I'll be in Columbia, South Carolina this weekend. Shout out to Randy Hartman. If you're in the chat, maybe we can link up. I don't know how close to Columbia you are, but yeah, I'll be watching underneath the table at a wedding. And so they're Buffalo people. They'll understand. Multiple people will be watching with me, but
the good thing for me is the one I'm going to is like, I'm like near the end of the guest list for sure. So I don't think anyone's going to care what I'm doing. My brother is the best man at this wedding I'm going to. So I'm just like kind of been invited as like as a what is it called? As a why is the word slipping my mind? Anyway,
pity invite,
like a pity, not a pity invite, but it's like almost like a formality, like
yeah. It's like, you got it.
So we'll see.
Yeah, it's weird. My wife likes to say that I'm evolving because like when we first started dating, she would leave before every Bills game. Like, so she would usually stay over on Saturday night and then leave Sunday morning before the Bills game. And then we moved in together, and she's like, "You're a wild man. Like, what did I get myself into? Like, the dogs have panic attacks watching me watch a football game, and I don't miss a second of it. Like, it's bad." And she's like, "You're really evolving as a human this year, because I missed half the game on Thanksgiving when my mother-in-law made me pause the game for dinner. I missed the Patriots game when I was coaching a basketball team on the West Coast. The one time the time difference got me." And then I'm going to miss this game on Saturday. So it's I'm evolving. I'm evolving as a human.
You're growing. I'm
growing. There's more important things. There's more important things than football, guys. I am saying that with half a straight face.
I will say my emotions during the game have, as opposed to being outward aggression, they've been redirected into Twitter. So like it's like all coming out that way, and then I'm nice and calm outwardly. So
all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Super appreciate it. And until next time, go Bills.
go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?